with a way I could get rid of this tie. My name is Jack Brennan, and I'm an alcoholic. Aloha. And hi, y'all. I come from Kansas City, and I got the boots on to prove it. Yes, sir. I know now why cowboys die with their boots on. You can't get the damn things off. And Kansas City, you know, is the home of Matt Dillon and Gunsmoke. And I love cowboys. I love to see them get shot by Indians. Man, that pleases me no end when I hear that twang, you know, and there goes another cowboy. I guess I was born perverse or something. I said perverse. I'm glad this guy had sense enough to get Sandy to put this on me. Talk about the Alamo. Kansas City is also the home of Loretta Lynn. Loretta Lynn, you know, that country western singer. Everybody should know her in AA and Al-Anon, especially Al-Anon people. She wrote the Al-Anon theme song. Don't come home with drinking with loving on your mind. This has been a crazy mixed-up affair here. I don't care what Maury says. This has been ridiculous. Johnny Harris out on a golf course playing golf. Any of the bangers I was ever in never played golf. I don't know where he learned. Father Fred sitting down there last night without his collar, talking with Bob Crosby. Smoke-filled room. An escapee from the Texas State Mental Institution. He's sitting down here in the front row making faces at me. He don't know there's a $50 reward for the return. I got to get together with Tom after a while. I never could puke good. Maybe I get a few pointers from him. I'd like to tell you my little priest story today. It seems that there was this priest up in New York, you know, and he was not much of a priest. He couldn't do anything right, and his name was not Brennan either. And every time he walked up into the podium to read the Bible or give a sermon, he would fall and stumble and stagger and drop the book, and oh man, he was something. And the pastor of the church was getting kind of tired of this guy. And he said to him one day, "Hey, stupid, come here." And he said, "You know, you got to smarten up a little bit. We're going to get you rid of you." And he said, "You know, the best thing that a priest has to do is to give a good sermon." And he said, "You can't give a good sermon." He said, "When you give a sermon, the women clean out their bags." And he said, "The men go to sleep." And he said, "No good for a priest." He said, "Now listen to me here. Sunday morning, 7 o'clock, I'm going to be at the 7 o'clock mass. You be in the front row. And you watch what I do." He said, "It's very important. You get their attention. And then when you get it, you keep it. You deliver your sermon." He said, "You watch how I do, and then you do it." So Sunday morning, he was the pastor up in the church, you know. And he gets up to give the sermon, and a little guy is sitting down there in the front, all ears. And he says, "This morning, my friends, I have a deep, dark secret to share with you all." And man, he got their attention. And he said, "I'm in love with a very beautiful woman." And he really got their attention. I mean, you could hear a pin drop. And he said, "Her name is the Blessed Virgin." And then he delivered his sermon, and it was beautiful, see. So the little priest after the meeting come into the sacristy. He said to the pastor, I see what you mean. Well, he said, that was good. He said, I can do that. Let me take the 11, will you? So you get in the front row at the 11, and I'll do what you did. So he gets the 11 o'clock mass, and here comes time for the sermon. He stands up there, and he's very, very confident. He says, this morning, my friends, I have a deep, dark secret to share with you all. The pastor is in love with a very beautiful woman. He says, but for the life of me, I can't remember her name. Well, you see, he ain't a priest no more. He's working in construction in Levittown. When I stood up here, I said that my name was Jack Brennan. I'm an alcoholic. And it don't make one damn bit of difference what that my name is. Not one bit. But it's very urgent, very important that you know that I'm an alcoholic and that I suffer from the disease of alcoholism. And to all intents and purposes, looking at me here today or seeing me outside, unless that I told you, you would never know it. And the point that I want to make here this morning is, don't remember my name, but just remember that I was able to come down here from Kansas City and fly on a plane and come here and find this place. And that was not easy. I came by the overland stage from Los Angeles. And they call Los Angeles the city of angels. I think I like Kansas City better, and I don't like that too good. But at any rate, the thing is that I want to impress upon you that I'm here apparently normal, and yet I suffer from a disease that if I pick up one beer this afternoon, I know that in a very short period of time I would be dead. This is the disease that I live with. And this is the disease that Alcoholics Anonymous taught me to live with. So what you see here today talking to you, and what you hear, is what has been taught to me since I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. Because anything that I brought with me into AA, when I first arrived here, would be of no value to anyone. I'm sure that none of you good people would like to know how to stick up a bank. None of you good people would like to worry about how if you shot somebody the night before. But this is what I know, and this is what the only thing in this world that I had when I came to AA. I was bankrupt in every department, mentally, physically, and spiritually. So what I say to you here today is that if AA works for me, it will certainly damn well work for you. And I'm not stupid enough to think that everybody here is going to benefit by what that I say. But I do know one thing, that my friend upstairs guides my life. Because I turned my life over to the care of the higher power when I came to AA. And when someone calls me to come to an AA meeting or banquet such as this or what, I feel I am morally bound, if humanly possible, to go. Because it means that my friend upstairs has one individual sitting out there somewhere that has will benefit from something that I say here today. Just one person. So I made a trip from Kansas City to talk to one individual. I don't know who that you are. I probably never will meet you. But I know that you're here because that's the way my friend upstairs works. He left me alive in order that I could be here to talk to you today. So you damn well better listen good. And the rest of you can just sit there quietly. I take no pills. I don't understand drugs. I don't know too much of anything. In fact, before I came to AA, it was said that if it was raining soup, I would be out with a fork. And that still holds true. I have bought sweepstake tickets, lottery tickets. I played the numbers. I never won a damn thing. Yesterday I won something, or the day before, on the way down in the plane. I won a bottle of champagne. I was going to hit the pilot with it, but I figured I better not. I wanted to get here. I'm very happy and grateful to be here because I have much gratitude. I have gratitude enough for everybody sitting here today. I have faith enough for everybody sitting here today because mine eyes have seen what AA will do. So I don't have any hesitation in telling you that I'm a walking, talking miracle. I don't have any hesitation whatsoever, because when I came to AA, I was dead, completely dead. There was no hope anywhere for me in this world. And the results of AA and AA people, and people like yourselves, teaching me how to live with me and with my disease, have given me 27 long years of good living. Yeah. I would say this, that if anyone at any time, ever, anywhere, offers you an easier, softer way to do it, bash them right in the mouth. I love AA. I have seen miracles in AA. I have seen dead men get up and walk. I have seen children come out of the corners where they cried for years and put their arms around their fathers and mothers. I have seen mothers come home after many, many years and become mothers again. And I have seen fathers that were cursed and criticized and berated. And I have seen them stand up on their feet and walk like men and go home and put their lives back together again. So I know one thing, and I know it well. I know that my friend upstairs is here this morning. And I know he's at every AA meeting that I ever attended. And I know that the gift that he gave to Bill Wilson so many years back was a gift given out of love because of what we alcoholics did for so many years to so many people that didn't deserve it. 3,000 years ago, the Chinese had a name for the disease of alcoholism. 3,000 years ago, the Chinese, in the earliest recorded history, said that the man takes a drink, and then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the man. And that is a perfect description of the disease of alcoholism. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that this is a God-given, God-inspired program. And that what Bill Wilson received from the higher power with his spiritual experience 38 years ago was nothing short of miraculous. Because for 3,000 years, the alcoholics have been tearing up themselves and lives about them. And 3,000 years ago is a long, long time. And can you imagine how many prayers have gone up to the higher power? Help my mother, help my father, help my brother, help my sister, help my child. And never until 38 years ago was there an answer. But 38 years ago, a helpless, hopeless, chronic alcoholic, Bill Wilson, helpless, hopeless, chronic alcoholic, And when you had that tag, you were dead. There was no hope for you, nowhere. And yet this helpless, hopeless, chronic alcoholic received understanding and a gift from a higher power. And that's why we're all here today, because of that miracle that happened 38 years ago in the humble birth of AA in Akron. This is the way that it worked. So I would say to you, I have always been a smart fella. When I stuck up a joint, I made sure that it had 3 exits. When I did anything, I always looked for the edge. And when I came into AA, I knew that I had found the edge. Because I tell you something, they don't come any bigger than my friend upstairs. No bigger. And I always put my money on the biggest I can find. So AA, to me, is the only answer for the alcoholic. And I believe that with all my heart and with my dying breath. I have here a piece of paper. It's reprinted from a Philadelphia newspaper. It says, speaking of your health, the disease of alcoholism. It's not supposed to be reprinted, of course. Well, I've reprinted about 500,000. And it was written by Lester L. Coleman, M.D. And if Lester Coleman doesn't like my reprinting them, what's he gonna do? It's called The Disease of Alcoholism. And I could actually read this and sit down, because here is the answer for you people that are new or wondering if you're in the right place. You're in the right place. We're all here because we're not all there. Alcoholism is an actual physical illness, sometimes described as an allergy because it reflects a lack of tolerance to alcohol. It is not a mental illness. All of you people that have been hiding behind that old cry, I'm crazy, you're not crazy. Get into AA, you're not crazy. It is not a mental illness. Bouts of excessive drinking commonly produce personality changes in the alcoholic, which are too often mistaken as mental illness. And these temporary changes in personality are due to the chemical effect of alcohol and disappear when the alcoholic returns to sobriety. The alcoholic differs from other drinkers not by the amount of alcohol he drinks, but by his body's chemical reaction to it. The alcoholic may not want to drink, but he cannot control the impelling drive and the chemical need for the sustenance of alcohol. There is no cure. The only effective treatment is total and permanent abstinence. And he recommends the good doctor that anyone that is afflicted with the disease of alcoholism should associate himself with the members of Alcoholics Anonymous, because these people will teach you how to live with your disease that you will never get rid of. That's the whole story. If there's somebody here with one of those mimeograph machines, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble and reproduce them too. I was born just like everybody else. There's been some concern about that and chatter. But I had a mother and I had a father. And I knew both of them too. And not everybody can make that statement. But I knew both my mother and father were nice people. And I think for the first 6 months they thought I was a lovely boy. But I was different. I was one of 9 children. And I had an alcoholic for a father. And my alcoholic father scared me to death. And I couldn't live like my brothers and sisters. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't sleep with a light off. My mother couldn't go to the store and stay overly long. All sorts of fear of impending disaster. I lived a life of terror as a kid. Nobody knew that I was an alcoholic because I had not yet drank. But the doctors today would describe me as a potential alcoholic, Or they would go even one step further and they would say that I would be chemically disposed to be an alcoholic when I drank. And what I'm driving at here is that the first and foremost manifestation of the disease that I suffer from is ungrounded and unfounded fear. And if you were to ask me as a kid, why are you so afraid, I would not be able to answer. I wouldn't know. Just that I had a knot in my belly that wouldn't allow me to play baseball, football. My only concern was what's going to happen to my mother when my father comes home drunk. And I used to look at my brothers and sisters in awe. And they would say, how can they live the way that they live? They go to school. And they come home with report cards and they fight. And they do all the things that kids do. And don't they understand the terrible problem that we have in here, in my father? And I used to go and beg him, don't drink no more, Pop. And he'd say, nah, Jack, I won't. And he'd take me on his lap and he'd rock me forth and back in the rocker. And he'd tell me, Jack, I'm going to sober up and I'm going to get you a pair of skates. And I'd say, oh, that's a good father. Now you're more like that guy down the street, Tommy McGrath's father. He's a good father. And I wanted desperately for my father to do the things that Tommy McGrath's father did. I hated Tommy McGrath because he had a good father. And I used to beat him regularly every Wednesday. My father used to promise me and he would get a job, and he would, and I would sit on the stoop and watch for a week or two. You see, I didn't play as a kid. I sat on the stoop and waited for him to come home. And when he turned the corner a block away, I could tell you whether he was sober, whether that he was drinking beer, or whether he was drinking whiskey just by the way he walked. And I was but 6 years old. My name is Jack Brennan. I'm an alcoholic. And I know these things. And I watched him. And when he would come around the corner sober, I would be happy. I'd run to meet him. Another day and he's sober, but always in my stomach was things that my mother had said to me. I used to run to her and tell her, Mom, he's not going to drink no more. And she'd say, I know, I heard that before. Let's wait and see. And so I would wait. And good enough, one day he'd come around the corner, he'd be drunk. And I would be dashed to pieces again, you see. And I wouldn't talk to him. And I'd run down the cellar and I would hide behind the boiler where nobody could find me or reach me. My brother used to come down and say, Jack, come on out of there. I say, no, go away. Go away. Leave me alone. I don't want you. I don't want nobody near me. My mother would come down. I say, no. And I would stay behind the boiler maybe 2 or 3 days. And I wouldn't eat and I wouldn't sleep and I would cry. And I would pray. And I would say to my friend upstairs, what do you do? And I couldn't understand because my mind wouldn't grasp. And he'd say, my father's a bum. And I'd say, no, he's not. And I was torn between love and hate. And I grew. And as I grew, my love and hate grew too. And then slowly the love diminished and subsided. Nothing but hate. Because what my mother would said was true. Jack, he ain't never going to sober up. He's a sick man. He's going to die alcoholic. And she said, not alcoholic. He's going to die drunk. And I looked at her and I agreed with her one day. Until that day, no one could convince me that my father was beyond help. But that day I knew that he was. And then I hated him. I hated his guts with a passion. And then my life started to change because now when I went to church, you see, I would pray not for my father's being sober, but my father being dead. And I would say, why don't he fall under a train? Why don't he get hit with a cab? Or why don't he fall down the stairs and break his neck? 7, 8 years old. And my brothers, they didn't understand. They used to laugh at me. They used to laugh at me when I would say things to them about my father. And when I would say I'm worried about Mom, they would say, oh, shut up, stupid. He's not going to hurt her, he's only drunk. And I used to watch my mother standing by the door arguing with the landlord about throwing us into the street because we hadn't paid the rent, and her begging him to take a week's rent instead of a month because she didn't have it. And I watched her going out and dickering with the butcher for pork chops. Yeah, pork chops for 9 miles. Because she never counted herself in, don't you see? So when I would sit down at a table, I always said, I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat. And the other kids used to grab for 2 or 3. And I couldn't bring myself to eat one. And what am I trying to say here to you today? That we alcoholics are different. And our disease makes us very sensitive. And it's this sensitivity that we have to overcome and realize that when we come here to AA, we can be just as sensitive as we like. Because here, the people do understand. They do understand. What then is the gift that was given to Bill Wilson 38 years ago? The gift of understanding one alcoholic for the other. And somehow, you know, across a crowded room, you can spot an alcoholic. You can feel it. It's the empathy. It's the thing that you can't bottle. It's the thing that the doctors don't know about. And it's the things that are not printed in textbooks for medicine or science. It's a feeling in the heart of knowing that there, but for the grace of God, go I. And then the gratitude wells up in your throat, and people say to you, would you do this? Why, sure. No job becomes too hard. No day becomes too long. Because gratitude for your life should be unending as I see it. I picked up my first drink at age 12 with my brother. My brother has been taking 2 drinks for the past 40 years plus. If you ever meet him, don't drink with him. He'll do the same thing to you he did to me 40 years ago. If you go to his house, he'll give you a drink and wait a proper, respectable time, then he'll give you another drink. Then he put the cork in the bottle and the bottle back in the closet. And you just lit the fire and he's all done. We were in a bedroom and my father was starting another drunk, and it was Saturday morning. My mother said to me, Jack, get in the bedroom, because now my father and I didn't get along at all. I would sneer at him when he walked by me. And his drinking was getting closer together. His work was getting less and less. Things were coming rapidly to a grinding halt. And when he used to see me and drunk, he used to lash out at me. He'd kick at me, beat at me, if he could catch me, because I hated him and he knew it. So she said, Jack, get in the bedroom, don't start any trouble. I was 12 years old, my brother was 10. We got into the bedroom and my brother come up from under the bed with a bottle of wine. And he said, Jack, look what I found. And I said, what is it? He said, I don't know, it's what the old man drinks. And he pulled the cork out and he smelt it. He said, it smells good. You want to try it? I said, hell no, you try it. See, my mother didn't raise any stupid children. And I watched him and he took a drink and he said, oh boy, that's good and sweet. And I said, really? I watched him for another minute. He didn't fall down, nothing. So I said, give me that damn thing here. What can you do in the bedroom on a rainy Saturday morning? Kid's trick is all that it was. It's all that it was to him. But to me, it was a changing of my life. Because I took that bottle and I took my first drink, and it was bottle magic. All my fears disappeared with one drink. And I looked at that bottle in awe, and I said, my God. No wonder the old man's always sipping on this stuff. And then my brother said, let's have another one. And I said, by all means, let's do. And now I was 10 foot tall. And as God is above me, the quiet kid sitting on the stoop reading a book was no more the quiet kid sitting on the stoop reading a book. But I was thinking of how hard I would have to hit the old man behind the ear with a milk bottle to put him out of the way. I was nothing except terror. My brother said to me, Jack, you going to drink more? Have another one, Joe. And he said, no, two's enough. If you drink any more, it's going to make you sick. I said, you're out of your mind. If the Lord made anything better than that, he kept it up there for himself. Because, you see, he was talking about the taste of it, and I was talking about the effect of it. And right there is a difference. Same mother, same father, same home, same food, same clothes. But the body is different here. And alcohol, the chemical, as the good doctor said, relieved me of ungrounded and unfounded fear. I drank. My brother quit and I drank. And that's such is the situation for 40 years. He's still taking 2 drinks. But me? No. That particular day I don't remember too well. I remember the next morning when my mother woke me up in bed. And I woke up with my first hangover. And I woke up with that ball of knot in my stomach of remorse. I knew I had done something, didn't know what that it was. A peculiar feeling known only to alcoholics, remorse. They're sorry and they don't know what they did. You ever see an alcoholic come into AA, new man? Somebody give him a cup of coffee and he stands there shaking and trembling, and somebody will knock his coffee on his suit. And the alcoholic will say, I'm sorry. He's sorry. We're always sorry, because that is another manifestation of our disease, remorse. And we don't know why we should be remorseful, but we are. We don't know what we did even, but we're sorry. Well, this particular morning, my mother said to me, Jack, please, for the love of God, don't ever do what you did yesterday. And I said, Mom, what did I do? Please stop crying. And she was crying bitter tears, and she said to me, Jack, one in this family is enough. Don't ever do it again. She said, you drink almost 3/4 of a gallon of wine, and then you tried to take a bath and you passed out in a bathtub. Your father and brother had to pull the door down and get you out of the tub and put you in bed. And you slept all night. It's Sunday morning. She said, now get up and go to church. Don't ever do it again, Jack. And I said, Mom, please stop crying. It was a mistake. And I was lying, because I was scheming then how to get more. You see, all my life, people had told me, Jack, be like your brother. I would ask my mother a question. She'd say, be like your brother Jimmy, you'll be all right. I'd ask my father a question, be like your brother, you'll be all right. Nobody had an answer for me. Just be like your brother. And my brother was the kind of guy I couldn't be like. He hung his pants up at night. He saved nickels till he had dollars, and then he'd go to the bank and get dollars, saved them. He had one job for 27 years. My average was 27 a year. His report cards, they used to hang on the board in school. Mine, they used to put underneath the desk. I couldn't do anything right. And for me to try to be like my brother was impossible. And I tried, and I hated him too, because I couldn't be like him. Be like your brother. Well, now I didn't have to be like my brother. I could be my brother. All I needed was a little booze. I could do anything. I could go to school. I could do anything. I could walk. I could talk. I could play a little ball. I could do anything if I had a little booze. And how do you get booze when you're 12 years old? Well, that's very simple. If you're an Irish Catholic, you become an altar boy. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of altar boys here, I know. Well, I was an altar boy before I picked up my first drink. And I used to ask for the 6 o'clock mass because you got the best chance there, see? Nobody had the 6 o'clock mass, no altar boys, only me. And I used to get there 5:15. And I used to do a lot of polishing. I used to polish everything and polish off a little something, you know. And let me tell you, they go first class in those sacristies, too. Well, I used to meet alcoholic priests because they used to get there 4:45. And that would be a bad day for me, because then, you see, now I couldn't do anything again. I would go to school and I would sit in the corner like Dinny the Dunce. If I had a little wine in the morning, I could go to school and I'd tell the nun sister, why don't you just sit down in the front row there? I'll take over the class today. Yeah. See, Jekyll Hyde. Well, to make a long story short, that was my life. A yo-yo. Up and down. Up and down. Never ceasing. Always searching for something. Always searching for someone to understand me. Let me tell you very quickly where booze took me. I looked at my father, And I looked at my shoes. Work didn't work. Work was not for me. He worked like a horse, and I didn't have a pair of shoes. I never owned a new pair of shoes. I always had my brother's shoes, hand-me-downs, hand-me-down pants, hand-me-down clothes. So when I grew up just a little bit, maybe 12 or 14, I started to steal. And let me tell you something. I have stole much money in my life, much. And I don't stand here to brag about it. It's just part of my story where booze took me. At 16 years of age, my mother come home and found me in the kitchen threatening my father with a gun. I had a roll of stolen money, and I had brought it home very happily to give to her. No more pork chops worrying about 8 or 9. Pay the stupid landlord. Plenty more where that came from, Mom. And she said, I'm going to tell you something, Jack. Take your stolen money and take your gun and take your whiskey and get out of my house. Don't come back. 16 years of age. And I was amazed. I said, why? I said, I bring you what you don't have. And she said, I don't want it. Because your father there, he may not be the best father, but he's not like you. He's not vicious. And remember what that she said to me. You hurt everybody you ever came in contact with from the moment that you were born. And I said, it's not true. And she said, it's true, and get out. I don't know where that you came from, so I left. I left, and I was so bitter. I tell you, bitter. Because here was the woman that I really loved, the only one in my life at that time that I ever could even think of. She was an angel. I used to watch her up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and when I was supposed to be sleeping and wadding, making breakfast. Last one in bed at night, covering up people. Putting bricks in the oven and wrapping them in blankets to put in the bed to keep us warm. I knew my mother. And when she told me, get out, you're an animal, and I don't know where that you came from, I was bitter. And bitter is to put it mildly. So I became a madman. And I did a lot of nasty things in my life. And I make no excuse for them. I did them, and they're mine. And my background is mine. But I would remind you of one thing, that I'm an alcoholic. And if alcohol could take me to the depths that it took me, don't you be so damn smug and proud. Because what happened to me could happen to you too. And if not to you, then perhaps one of your children. I hope not. And I hope that my being here today will prevent one person, from throwing his life away that I threw mine away for a good many years. Because you see, I was a wheelman for a mob in New York. I could drive a car at 90 miles an hour and take turns that police couldn't because I had weights and offenders. And I would shoot back when they shot at me, and I've been shot and I've shot people. And I would think nothing of sticking up a joint, 4 or 5 of us, coming out with $10,000 or $15,000 as my share. I'm not proud of it. And there was more things that I'm not proud of. I love the feeling that came over me when I would stick a gun in a man's belly. And I would watch his mouth fall open in fear. And I would see the fear in his eyes. I was big. Oh, I was so big. And I loved it. I had respect at last. But you see, I didn't know what to do. And many times I would bash the man across the bridge of the nose. And some nights I wake up yet. And I have my nightmares about my past. And I sit on the end of the bed very quietly. And a feeling of gratitude for AA comes over me. Because here is a program geared for people like me. It enables me to live with my garbage. Yes, that was me. But thank God that's not me anymore. And this is the feeling that I have when I see in my mind's eye blood coming out of the corner of people's eyes that I've hit. And I can see one guy laying on the floor with his head split. I hit with a steel bar stool, almost tore the top off his head. And when they told me to run, I said, no, I don't run. And if he opens his mouth again, I'll kick the rest of his brains out. And I can see me standing laughing at other people after I've hurt them. It's not a very pretty picture. And I want to say one thing, that had I not been drunk or drinking, I could not have been capable of doing the things that I did. Impossible. You see, the doctor knows what that he's talking about. Temporary insanity. When I drink because of a body's chemical reaction. I'm not proud of my past, but I am proud of the fact that when I came to AA and these people offered me a life, I was so grateful and accepted it. And many people say, well, of course you had to. I say, no, I don't. No. There are more of us dead than have accepted my life in AA. Potter's Field in New York, 2 years ago, they were counted 760,000 buried in Potter's Field, New York. 95% alcoholics. And we had the huge, fantastic figure of 650,000 in the entirety of AA. So they dying quicker than we can get them. And nobody has to stop drinking. Cemeteries are full of people that had to stop drinking and didn't. So I came to AA and I'm full of gratitude because my life previous was out of nothing. And I would tell you just very rapidly here that my life, not the blow-by-blow description, not important, but the things that I did. I took my wife and I tore her up. And I took my 2 kids and I tore them up. And I took my home and I tore it up. Because I didn't believe I was having trouble with alcohol. I didn't believe it. Alcohol was my friend. My only friend. Proof? I give you proof. If I would be out on a job at night and wake up in the morning in some hideout or some big hotel and have a pocket full of money, I would sit on the end of my bed and I would cry because the booze had worn off and now I was what I was, a 12-year-old scared kid with a gun in his shoe, sitting under the bed and a bottle of whiskey on the bureau. 12 years old and scared. That's all that I ever was. My morning drink necessarily had to come early. I drank to bury me because who the hell wants a 12-year-old scared kid? And here would be the big thief and a gunman sitting on a bed crying, smelling his gun, wondering what had gone on the night before. It was this very thing that got me to lose my first job through alcohol. I told you I was the wheelman. Well, how would you feel if the next morning the wheelman came to you and said, how did it go last night? You talk about an amazed mafia. My name was Crazy Jack the Umbriago. Umbriago, drunkard. Crazy Jack the Umbriago. Give him a drink, he'll do anything. That's right. But nobody ever saw me in the morning, sitting on a bed sobbing, smelling a gun, wondering who I'd killed. And the morning I woke up with a bullet in my back. Didn't even know that it was there till the next day. Alcohol. I'm not crazy. You see, I'm not crazy, and I got 12 pieces of paper home to prove it. And they come in very handy at times, too. I once said to someone, you know, let's you and me check into the hospital, and let's see who gets out. I had no fear whatsoever. I had been there, and I got turned loose. But you see, everybody doesn't know. And there are many people walking the streets, I think normal people, that, well, be a little scared to do what I would do. Check into a hospital and go through it. I went. Not because I wanted to. No, that's another story. You see, I had gotten married, and I had a baby, a little child. And my wife was getting very tired of my drinking and trying to help me. And she had tried to help me. She tried many, many times to help me. One day she brought home the big book of AA, and I threw it through the window. And I told her that if she did it again, she would follow the book. And being that we lived on the 6th floor, it was not a good idea. But she said that she was going to help me because, you see, I was living now day and night drinking. And after we got married, she didn't know what she had married. She thought I was a very well-heeled, happy-go-lucky fella. I was, for other people's money. And she asked me one day, Jack, do you ever work? I said, no, I'm on vacation. She said, for a year? I mean, what kind of job is that? And I used to tell her in the morning, I drink in the morning because I work at night. And she said, yeah, but you're drunk when you leave. You're drunk when you come back. You're always drunk. You're killing yourself. I said, no, I'm all right. Don't bother me. I was drunk when you married me. Don't try to change me. I know what that I'm doing. Alcohol is my friend. I have no friends but alcohol. I live on it. And without it, I'm nothing. I have been locked up over 125 times. I've been arrested for everything that you can possibly think of. Assault with a deadly weapon, armed robbery, assault with the intent to kill, felonious assault. You name it, I've done it. And if there are any police here today, peace. Peace. I wish the chief of police were here today. He didn't look too good the other night. I was sitting here in the front row, and he was kind of looking 3 ways. And I wouldn't want to say anything, you know. But I would keep an eye on him. And if you get close to him, slip a little literature in his pocket. I wish he was here today. I'd spoil his day. All I would do is bend over and ask him, hey, Chief, what would you do if they all got drunk? He would die. I came home one day and my wife was determined to help me. She had taken me to an AA meeting and I scorned at them. I sneered. Some guy had the nerve enough to stand up here and say to me, don't take the first drink and you won't get drunk. And I came all the way from Brooklyn sick to hear that. And I said to my wife, is this what this is? Some idiot telling me things that I already knew in Brooklyn? Don't ever tell me about AA. And if I ever step foot in another AA meeting, I'll be dead. Well, I almost was. But that was only the beginning of the Third World War. Because, you see, she was a determined woman. And one day I came home after an extended bout. I was no more the mafia. I was nothing. All I was doing was living and stealing welfare checks that belonged to my children and drinking them up. And I was sitting in the bedroom looking out over Brooklyn with a bottle of whiskey. And I was drinking night and day in Never Never Land. Big ideas with nothing in my pocket. And when my wife would come near me, I would say, get the hell away from me and leave me alone. You're the only one in this world that I have to turn to, and now you're going the other way too. Get away from me. Just let me sit here with my whiskey and don't bother me. And she said, no, I need a husband. My son needs a father. I'm going to help you if it kills us, Jack, but you got to get help. That's why I went to the AA meeting. And the night that I came home, there was 2 cops in my apartment. Well, I had never liked cops. I do now, though. because I ain't going to leave here till tomorrow. And I see a flash of a badge coming back at me from these lights right up here close. So these two were sitting in my apartment, and I said, what are you doing here? Of course, I didn't say it like that, you know, but there's too many women here. And they said, we're here because your wife called us. And he said, you know, you almost killed her last night. I said, you're a damn fool. I wasn't even here last night. And she said, oh, yeah, you were. You come in drunk, you're fighting a war again. You had me hanging out the window by my throat. She said, go stop. I've had you up to here. I can't live with you no more. You tried to help you don't want help. The doctors tried to help you. Everybody's tried to, you don't want help. So I tell you something, Jack, what I'm going to do, she said. I'm going to protect me and my boy from you. And whatever that it takes, I'm going to do, but I'm going to protect him. So I said, go and shut up your mouth, you know, big, hard man, me. And I said to the two cops, you two out. And they said, no. And I said, oh, yes, out. And they wouldn't go, so I threw them. And that was a mistake. Because then they went and they get reinforcements, you see. Then they come back and they threw me. And I won't tell you how they did it. They beat me down on the top landing of a 6-story building with clubs. And when I was all nicely clubbed up and in handcuffs behind my back, they said, now how do you feel? You're still a tough guy? I said, yeah. So they dragged me down the stairs by my heels, and my head hit every step on the way down. 6 flights of concrete steps. And when we get down the bottom, they asked me again, are you still a hard guy? I said, oh yeah. Please, I begged them, take off the handcuffs. And they did. And I went to work in the back of the building with 6 cops. And I remember vaguely getting bounced off walls and bounced off the floor. I remember getting in a few good licks, but I was losing. And I remember one time that one big fat slob there, he had his foot in my throat, and he was almost crying. And he said to me, hey kid, don't get up no more, please. We're going to have to kill you. I said, yeah, that's right. You're going to have to kill me because you ain't going to get away with it. And the next thing I did was come to in Kings County Hospital, flight deck, in a straitjacket, lashed to a bed, both my jaws wired together, broken, my skull fractured, my nose all over my face, my ribs kicked in, my fingers broken from someone standing on them. And I had a big lump of blood in the back of my throat and I couldn't spit it out. Well, I want to tell you something. If anybody ever in this world said and meant, that's my last drink, I want to meet him because I said it. And I didn't care nothing about anything. I just didn't want no more to drink. And I said, oh my God, if I ever get out of here, I'll never come back again. And I was released from there some 20 days later, and I went home. And I sat in a house, and it was like a morgue. Because the old man was home, and he was sick from booze, his nerves. And if the kids dropped a toy, I would jump. And if the phone rang, I would run to the bedroom. And I would sneak out in the middle of the night and stand on a porch so that I could get a little air. I couldn't go out in the daytime. There were people there. And I sat in a corner like a vegetable for maybe a week, not daring to drink, not daring to go out, unable to do anything because my friend had deserted me, booze. And I couldn't drink, and I couldn't live without it. And I sat, and I sat, and I sat. And my brothers came and said, come on, Jack, I'll buy you a job. I said, please, you don't understand. I can't go out in the daytime. He said, why? I said, just can't. There's people out there. And he didn't understand. He said, they should have kept you in the hospital. I think there's something, you know. And my sister came and she said, you bum. My husband is working 2 jobs to support your family, and you sit here on your butt and you say you can't work. You can't get out and get a job, you bum. And I said, Agnes, I don't understand. Why are you treating? I can't go out. Don't you understand? And she said, no, I don't. Nobody understood. So I finally conned my wife out of 50 cents, and I told her if I had 1 beer, that I could go downtown and get a job, and I would. And that all I wanted was 1 beer, that's all, nothing else. And she believed me reluctantly, but she gave it to me. And I went down and I stood on a corner and I decided on 1 beer so I could get on that damn subway. And my intentions were beautiful. I was going to get a job, and I was going to straighten out, and I was going to do everything. And I went in and I had 1 beer, and it was like somebody turned a key in my head. Just like that, boom. And the next thing you know, I said, them cops that beat on me, I'm going to find them. And I found them. I found them 12 times. And 12 times I wound up in a straitjacket in Kings County Hospital in Bellevue. And 12 times I swore that I would never touch another drop as long as I lived. And 12 times I came home to a wife in the middle of the night and said, they turned me loose from the hospital. And 12 times she asked me, what are you going to do now, Jack? I said, I don't know. I don't know. But you see, I was not having any trouble with alcohol. None. Alcohol was my friend. So 12 times, and each time a little worse, and each time a little harder to come out of the hospital. Because, you know, it gets to be a refuge after a while. A refuge. Don't have to pay any taxes. Don't have to worry about phone calls or mail. You don't get any. You don't have to worry about nothing. All your thinking is done for you. And you're a zombie. And the one thing that spoils it all is that you know you don't belong there. Not when you're sober. You don't belong there. You are not crazy. The chemical reaction in your belly is what turns the mind off. 12th time I come out, they stood me before a judge and my wife. Wouldn't let me have a drink that day, took me directly from hospital to court. I had by this time been blinded in one eye with the beatings. I don't hear a sound out of my left ear. The left side of my head has been pulverized many times. My teeth have been kicked up into the roof of my mouth 12 times. I've had almost every rib in my body broken, my hand. 203 stitches in that part of my right hand. But I was having no trouble with alcohol. None. And I stood up before this judge and I asked him what that he wanted, and he told me. He said, I have an obligation to read to you before I do anything. I must tell you and acquaint you with what I have here. He said, we got a prognosis of you from the doctors, and the doctors tell us that you will never be able to work another day in your life. And the doctors tell us that you are completely unable to retain anything in your mind. You're suffering from wet brain. It says impossible for you, according to this report, to be able to tell the difference between right and wrong. And the doctors also say that you are a homicidal maniac, and that maybe some night you might wake up in the middle of the night and wipe your family out and not even know that you did it. And this is Jack Brennan. And I said, no, that's not me. Because now, you see, sober, I was 12 years old and scared again. But the judge had his way. And I asked my wife, what do you do to me? And she said, I do to you nothing. You did it to yourself. She said, I want to tell you something, Jack. I told you before. These 2 kids are going to have a chance to live. And they can't live with you. So I'm going to take them now, and the judge has given them to me, and you get out of our lives. Same words my mother used. You've done nothing but hurt everybody you ever came in contact with. and you're an animal, and get lost. Leave us alone. And if you stick your dirty face in my home where I'm raising my children, she said, I'm going to kill you. She said, I'll get you while you're sleeping. I'll put a knife in your belly. She said, but I'll guarantee you that I'll do what somebody should have done a long time ago. She said, I'll kill you. I hate your guts. And I left the courtroom that day, bitter and nasty. And I had big ideas of going over to New York and going up Mulberry Street and getting myself a gun and make a couple of scores and come back with a new suit and a roll of money, and she'd love me like always. No. You see, the biggest thing that AA does for us, it fulfills what the Lord calls the greatest of his commandments. Yeah. Live together and love one another even as I have loved you. That's what AA is, and that's what I was not. And I couldn't live nowhere because I was nothing. So I went to New York full of hate, and full of big ideas and big schemes. But I could not understand why people always wanted to take my booze. If they only would let me drink and leave me alone, I would have been all right, I thought. So I went to New York more bitter than any man could possibly be, full of hate. But I couldn't go up Mulberry Street and get a gun, as nobody even would trust me with a gun. I was nothing. I was wiped out, and I didn't know it. So what happened was that I wound up on a Bowery in New York. And I lived on the Bowery in New York for about 2.5 years. And I slept in the snow and in the rain. And I had body lice. And I had hair down the back of my neck. And I had blood all over me from falling down subway stairs and getting hit by cars and trucks and not remembering. And I lived in Never Never Land for 2.5 years. And I picked butts off the sidewalk and smoked them before I would ask anybody for a cigarette. And I would steal drinks from other alcoholics laying sleeping on the Bowery. I would steal their bottle because I needed it more than they did. Because every time that I woke up, I keep my eyes closed hoping that what I was smelling was not me. And if I would only go back to sleep, maybe it would disappear and I'd wake up and I would be home again. But it was me. And I stunk like a goat on Goat Hill. And my mind was sick and my body was sick. And I could barely see and I could hardly talk. But I drank because I didn't like a 12-year-old scared kid. And I couldn't live with me. And I lived like that for so long. And my friend upstairs must have despaired many times. But one day, he had his way. Because I took my morning drink and I went into the back of a filthy, stinking bar that you wouldn't walk in. And I walked into the toilet in that bar because I knew that the first one would always come up. And when I threw up that morning, it was very rugged. And the second and the third come back, unusual. And with the third or fourth one, half my stomach came. And I had a terrible case of hemorrhages of the stomach. And I was so weak from lack of food that I fell down on my face. And I was barely able to manage to hook my chin on that filthy bowl. Picture it. Too weak to move. Bleeding like a stuck pig. And it was at that moment my friend upstairs came into my life. Because I lay there and I literally watched myself running down a toilet bowl. And it was at that moment that I looked at the bottle that I was trying to drink and I said, no, that's my trouble. Not my wife and not the police. The booze is my trouble. And I said, to hell with it. I don't want it no more. Let me die. Why am I fighting so hard to stay alive? Let me die. I threw it over my shoulder and I closed my eye and I waited to die. But my friend upstairs, you see, he always has the last word. I'm not dead. I'm alive. Because I believe this with all my heart, that alcoholics in AA are very special people. Emissaries, couriers, if you would, of God's goodness. We have a beautiful job to do once we arrive, because to us is given the power to carry the message to another sick alcoholic and bring him to AA, where he too will be under the care and umbrella and scope of the higher power. I know, because it happened to me. Why should I not tell you? Should I tell you something different? I can only tell you what happened to me, and you judge for yourself. Because while I lay there in that stinking, filthy, lousy toilet on the Bowery of New York, more dead than alive, wishing to die and not knowing how to go about it, the man upstairs took care of me. Because he saw what I had done. I had made the first step. I had thrown the bottle over my shoulder and said, that is my trouble, and I put my finger on the trouble where it belonged. Admission. What did he do for me? My mind was chaos. The doctors were right. I had wet brain. I suffered severely from wet brain. And yet while I lay there, I saw the most brilliant, clear pictures that I ever saw in my life. I saw pictures of my wife and kids, action pictures. And I saw me in that picture too. And I saw pictures with me not in it. And I saw France and Germany and Egypt, where I had been years before. All beautiful, clear pictures. It was like a kaleidoscope going before my mind. I couldn't understand words, but I could understand pictures. And one of those pictures came up, and I couldn't understand it. It was like I was in a light looking down at a group of people all milling about, all nicely dressed, all drinking coffee. And I couldn't figure it out. What is that? I knew the others, but I didn't know this one. And then suddenly, like a bolt of lightning, it came what that it was. It was that AA meeting I had been at years before, where that guy said, don't take the first drink and you won't get drunk. And those people were AA people, all smiling and laughing, nicely dressed. And it was then that the feeling came over me of despair. Oh my God, I said, Jack, you had it in your hand and you blew it. You threw it away. That was the answer. Why did you do that? And I started to sob and I got almost hysterical. You see, I accepted. I accepted. And then my prayer of despair, which is always answered. No prayer of despair ever goes unanswered. First attention from the higher power, a cry of despair from the heart. And I said to myself, my God, why didn't I listen? If only it was not too late. And then a feeling come over me. Maybe it wasn't too late. And I crawled out of that dump about 7 hours later on my hands and knees. And I sat on the sidewalk begging somebody to call AA for me. And some kind person did. And I don't know who it was until this minute. All I remember is saying, all right, kid, I'll call them. And I remember them saying, sit there now, don't wander off because they're coming. And I sat waiting for AA to come. And I want to tell you something well like that. I said, are they coming? Is it a dream? Am I hallucinating again? Or did I move? I didn't know, because you know, when you're on the Bowery in the condition that I was in, reality and unreality is all mixed up. God can be here and his mind over there. His mind can be over here and his body over there. You don't know. Zombies. But they came. I sat and I forced myself to sit, waiting for AA to come. They're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And my head trying to hold on to just one thought. They're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And they came. Little guy stood in front of me with his wife, and she said, oh my God. And he said, shh, it's all right, Gene. Don't worry about it, he won't hurt you. And then he said to me, my name is Sam Cohn, and I'm an alcoholic. And if you want me to help you, I will. And do you want to stop drinking? And I said, oh my God, yes. And you know something? I understand that, came to believe on that sign that we have about AA, guy on a bed and two sitting talking, came to believe. I came to believe right then, before I saw an AA meeting. Because this poor guy had to get up real close to me. I had to look into his eyes, see. And I found what Bill Wilson got from the higher power in this guy's eyes, understanding. He wasn't conning me. I thought he maybe was. But I just looked into his eyes and I found what I was looking for in the bottom of a bottle all my life, understanding. And he said to me, if you don't want to drink no more, you come with me, you don't have to drink no more. And if you come with me and Gene, we'll carry you to AA, and you'll be sober, and everything is going to be all right. Now, he had a lot of guts, this little Jewish guy. He had a lot of moxie, I'll tell you. Because, you know, there was a guy in Arizona that saw me come into AA, and God rest him, he's dead now. I won't mention his name, it's not important. But he was there when I come in, and he told me years later, Jack, you lost money from me. I said, how's that? He said, I would bet that you wouldn't even live, never mind get sober. And I took a bet. When you walked in that room that night, I said, this son of a bitch, you'll never make it. Yeah. But you see, my friend upstairs says I would. And my little Jewish friend Sam Cohn said that I could. So I developed faith and hope right then and there, and I said, yes, I'll come with you, if you'll have me. And I asked him only one time, I said, are you sure you know what you're doing? I said, you know, I would just as soon stay here and die as be hurt anymore. And he said, no, no one will hurt you. You come with me and Gene, you'll be all right, and you don't have to drink no more. So I came to AA. One half of one sneaker on one foot. One half of a sock on the other. A pair of dirty, filthy pants. One shirt. One eye. One ear. A busted mouth. Full of body lice. Full of blood. And full of filth. I want to ask you, does AA work? I bet my life on it. And I want to tell you, it for damn sure does. AA works every time, if you want it. And if I can do it, anybody sitting out there can do it. Because there was nobody more sick that didn't die. There was nobody had more trouble. There was nobody that was more confused. And here I stand. And I walk down the street and people, even cops, say, good morning, Jack. And I say, good morning, officer. And I love each and every one of you. Because I have seen what AA can do, and my gratitude is boundless, absolutely boundless. You see, I came to AA and I could do nothing. And I would like to tell you at this point what the disease of alcoholism does. It bankrupts us mentally, physically, and spiritually. The one chemical disease affects us mentally, physically, and spiritually. Mentally, it enables you to do things that normally you wouldn't want to do. Physically, it tears you apart. And spiritually, it buries you. And spiritually, has nothing whatsoever to do with church. Nothing. You see, to my mind, a spiritual individual is an individual who is wanted and needed and loved. The alcoholic is not wanted, not needed, and not loved at any time. So if you are wanted, needed, and loved, you're spiritual. If you're not, you're not. That's it. And AA and the 12 steps in AA make us and mend us and treat us in all these three departments. Because a guy that stops drinking is no longer insane. The doctor said so. And a guy that's drinking has to get better physically. I even stopped puking after 5 days. And the blood disappeared. And spiritually, I started to grow the moment that I came to AA because I recognized something wrong. And Sam Cohn said to me, Jack, sit down and relax. You're home. And I was home. For the first time in all my 29 years, I was home. I felt good. Only thing I was afraid of is somebody would say, hey, I see that guy's picture in the paper. No. Nobody ever said to me, get that bum out of here, he stinks too bad. No. Everybody said to me, Jack, keep coming back. We need you. I didn't understand them. I said, they need me. They got to be out of their mind. You know how you say to some big guy comes over, you stand like Denny the Dunce, and he said, keep coming back, son, we need you. I look at him with his big car and his $25 shoes, me with my sneakers, and he needs me. This guy, he must have had too much of the grape or something. But they did need me. Because Sam Cohn said to me one day, he said, Jack, you're helping an awful lot of people. I said, yeah. Yeah. And I asked him, how do I help people, Sam? He says, well, when we get new people in, we sit them near you. And we tell them if they keep drinking, it won't get like you. And then I used to make faces at them. I scared a lot of people sober. And I said, whoa, that's nice. I like that. See, I was becoming spiritual and didn't know it. And then he said, how about you wash the dishes? I said, oh, sure, I wash the dishes. We had very lovely cups that belonged to the church, china. And 2 weeks later, all gone, paper cups. But do you think they hollered at me? No. They used to hear the cups going bang, boom, bang. And what are you going to do? He's trying. And then I got a job as a professional dishwasher. Didn't last too long. I kept moving from place to place. Brooklyn is not that big, you know. And I'd break a lot of dishes and they'd take it out of my pay, but I was wound up. I had a room. Yeah. You had to step outside to change your mind, but I had a room. Cost me $4 a week. It was a beauty. No window, but I didn't have to clean it, see? And I was happy. Because for the first time in my life, I was becoming spiritual. People needed me. People wanted me. Keep coming back, Jack. We love you. And I said to Sam Cohn one day, I said, hey, Sam, you keep telling me you love me, kid. You know, where I come from, men don't love men. And I said, you're not one of them funny kind of people, are you? And he said, no. He said, we love you because you're an alcoholic. Now you chew that one over. Because I'm an alcoholic. How nice. Up until that point, everybody I knew tolerated me, in spite of my being an alcoholic. But here was this nice little Jewish man telling me he loved me because I was an alcoholic. And how good that it was. And you know what else he told me, Jack? Be yourself. Don't hide like you always did this way. Two people, buried. Be yourself. Come out. Tell everybody, how did you feel? We got so many brains here, we can help you. He didn't tell me like my father and mother told me, be like my brother. No. Be yourself. So I could sit down. He'd say to me, Jack, did you hear the meeting? I say, yeah, it was good. He'd say, who spoke? I don't know. And he would laugh. He'd say, but you were here. I said, yeah, it was a good meeting, too. And you know something? I was living for the first time in my life. Yeah, I was living. And then one day, you know, the group, they sent to my room where I was living a letter to me, Jack Brennan, and my address. And it was put in the mailbox for me. Amazing. I opened it up, and there it was. The meetings next month will be... And I said, boy, I have arrived. They got me on the books. Yeah. And one day my wife came to meeting. About 2.5, 3 years I was sober. And all the old fears come back up in me. And I said to Sam, Sam, watch her. She's up to something. And then he went and he talked, he'd come back, he said, no, she ain't up to nothing. He said, she likes the way you're living and, you know, she wants to talk to you. So I asked her, what do you want? And she said, well, I ain't doing too good with the kids, you know, we're short of money and you got a little room. If you want to come home and sleep on the couch, you can pay me, you know, what you paid her for the room. And I said, okay, I do that. So I went home and I thought it was the epitome of everything. I was allowed to sleep on the couch. I didn't talk to nobody, but I was there. And I could watch my kids go to school. And it was beautiful. And one day she said to me, isn't that couch getting a little hard? I said, no. No. And then she made improper advances to me. And I went up to Graymore to speak to my advisor, the Holy Mountain. And he said to me, that woman's making a noise like a wife. He said, good, go home. I said, how the hell do you know it's good? You're a monk. And 3 days later, I went home. Hardest thing that I ever did. Because I sat at a table with 2 children that I didn't know. And my boy used to follow me around and pick up my glasses and pick up my everything that I would drop, and my mind was... And my daughter used to sit and say, come on, Pop, you can do it. And she would sit on my lap and hold my hand with a knife in it and teach me how to cut meat. Because they told me I'd never use my hand again. And she used to hold it tight so the knife wouldn't fall out. And we'd cut. She'd say, see there, you could do it. Yeah. And then one day my wife told me that she was expecting again. And I had my 3rd child. Now my cup was full. I had the most beautiful feeling that I ever had in this world. And it was only the beginning. Because you see, it says the 3rd step, turn your life and will over to the care of God as you understand Him. I didn't understand Him. I said to Sam Combs one day, I said, Sam, I owe you my life. He said, you're a stupid Irish bastard. Excuse me, but that's what he said. And I said, why do you talk that way to me? And he said, because that's what you are. And I said, that's not nice, you know. And why do you say that? And he said, well, because I want to tell you something. What I did for you was done for me the same way. And the guy that did it for me had it done for him. And the guy that had it done for him had it done for him. And if you take it all the way back to the beginning, the guy upstairs did it for Bill Wilson, so that's who you owe, not me, stupid. I said, oh. And they said, well, what then do I do? He said, go tell him thanks. I said, I don't talk to him. He said, that's why you're ungrateful, bum. Because you don't talk to him. You've got shoes on your feet, you got a room, you're home with your wife, you're working, washing dishes, you got clothes. Your life has changed. You're not drinking, and you don't talk to him. Shame on you, you rotten, foul bum. Well, you see, nobody could talk to me that way. I had to admit I was wrong, so I said, all right, tell me what to do, and I'll do it. Don't get excited. Remember your apoplexy. I was hurt because he made me aware that there was more to this program than just coming here and inhaling coffee and getting diarrhea. He said to me, when you go home tonight, you talk to your friend upstairs. He must love you good because he sent me out to get you. And I went out and get you, you bum, and now you're here. Take care of yourself. Talk to him like you talk to me. And he said, no, wait a minute. In your case, clean it up a little bit. So I went outside, and that night I walked home instead of taking a bus. He said to my friend upstairs, I said, hey, friend, you know, I ain't doing too good till this time, you know, and that little guy in there said, you must love me because you sent out for me. It's got to be true. I can't deny it. So I tell you what that I'm going to do. I heard a lot of you citizens down here, but from here on in, you tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it. And you know what? He's been telling me every day for the past 27 years what to do. And sometimes I say to him, well, I'm going to do it, but you're wrong. Yeah. Yeah. And when you get in trouble, don't you come to me. So I do it, confident that this time he made a boo-boo, and he never did. So over the years, I have become instilled with one thing. Accept the things you cannot change, courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Our serenity prayer has all of that in it. That's a complete AA program. Surrender and accept. It was hard. I went down the basement with my wife when the kids went to bed, and I sat in the front of a mirror, and my wife said, now say this, dopey. And I learned how to talk. Over and over for hours pronouncing words. I know what it is. See, I've been there. And the greatest thing that ever happened to me was when someone asked me to speak at a meeting of nice people, as I called them, because I thought that I was only fit to speak at Salvation Armies and prisons. I wouldn't go to a group where they had a few bucks in a car. I was wrong again. So over the years, my friend upstairs has taken care of me well. He's given me a third child who is now in Pennsylvania in college studying to be a doctor. I have a daughter. I have a daughter who lives in Connecticut, or in Dobbs Ferry, rather, New York, with near to my oldest son, who also lives in Dobbs Ferry, New York. And my oldest son is an alcoholic, and he tore his life up for 15 years or 16 years. He did time in prison like his father, and hit skid rows and Boweries, and he did everything his father did. And my wife used to say to me, he's just like you. And I said, he better be just like me. Because if he's like the guy down the street, you're in trouble. Who the hell else should he be like? My father was an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, and my son is an alcoholic. And thank God for one thing. He has at this time 7.5 months in AA. And he tore my wife's heart out, and he tore my heart out. But I knew that the same everlasting higher power that cared for me yesterday and today will care for me tomorrow, and him too, and you too. So I walked with confidence for the past 15 years. I knew that one day that he too would come under the scope of the higher power. He was simply completing his education. Several years ago, I lost my wife very suddenly. I was to be in Midland, and I didn't make it because my friend upstairs wouldn't let me go. And I went and I changed my tickets from Friday to Saturday. And I went home and my wife laughed. She said, you're a comical fella. You should be down there because you need a rest. And I was going down to Midland to speak at a convention or some damn thing. And I had the fear in me of impending disaster. And I went to bed that night instead of being in Midland. And during the night, my wife, after laughing at me when she went to bed, she said, "Jack, you look so miserable. I wish there was something I could do for you." And I said, "There is. Go to bed and leave me alone. I'll be all right." And at 1 o'clock in the morning, she woke me up dying. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, she was dead. And I was in a hospital, outside the hospital, wondering what had struck me. And I had no shirt, and it was cold, and I was freezing cold, and I was confused. And I looked up to my friend upstairs, and I said, "What are you doing now?" And the answer came back to me very quickly. "Not doing anything to you, Jack. I gave her back to you for 25 years. Remember that. Now I'm taking her because I need her more than you do. And that's a fair exchange." He had given me back that woman for 25 years. She had produced another son for me. I had made all my amends to her, and now she's home where she belongs. And I thought surely that was the end of my life, and I was ready to retire. And I went home to Shenerac, New York, and I figured, well, now me and the dog, and that's it. And I was not lonely, and I was not happy, and I was nothing. I was just marking time. And I could look back on my life and say, "Well, Jack, you had a good one anyway." See. And then my friend upstairs got into the picture again. And I was called to go to somewhere, another convention. And I met a young lady, very confused and upset. And we talked, and we gave each other strength and hope. And then soon after, we got married. So now I'm married for the second time to a very lovely girl. Her name is Joyce, and she comes from Missouri. And she's 3.5 years in AA, and we're growing old together and growing old in AA together. And that's my life, and that's my story. And if there's anybody here that has any doubts for himself or for his future, don't to worry about it. Take the third step and the rest to go with it. Put your life into the hands of the man upstairs, and he will give you more than you dare to ask for, because we ask for so little. Where do you find a group of people such as this that ask for only one more day of living sober? There's so little to ask for. And when we have that attitude in our heart, then he makes sure that we get what we neglect to ask for. And he gives us so much that our cup runneth over. And believe me, it does. So I would say to you that I've talked a long time here. I'm sorry. I had much to say, and I had to say it because gratitude will strangle you just like anything else if you have too much of it. So I have to give it away. And I would like to tell you that this morning when I get up, I said my little prayer as I do every morning. It's called A Secret, and I like to share it with you. And I have some copies here for you. If you want to join me tomorrow morning, please take one. It says, "I meet my God in the morning when my day is at its best, and his presence comes like sunrise, like a glory in my breast. And all day long that presence lingers, and all day long he stays with me, and we sail in perfect calmness o'er a very troubled sea." So I think I know the secret, learned from many a troubled way. You must seek him in the morning if you want him throughout the day. And when I start my day with that little prayer before coffee, cigarette, anything, I know one thing. I'm telling my friend upstairs, here I am. Another day that you've given me, a gift. Let me live it properly. Let me live it to the best of my ability. And if I should get very busy and forget you, don't you forget me. Because my name is Jack Brennan, and I am still an alcoholic. And he takes care of me all that day. And I would like to thank you and everybody else for having me down here, whatever wheels were turned. And I would like to leave you with a little blessing that I love so well. May the roads rise with you, and may the wind always be at your back, and may the sun gently warm your face, and the rain softly fall on your fields. And until we meet again, may the good Lord hold us all in the hollow of his hand. Thank you, and God bless you.